Good morning, everyone. Welcome back from winter break. We are going to start learning about the history of North America today. So, before we get into the details about all of the unique peoples and civilizations who inhabited North America before the United States, we are going to learn about the idea of history and archaeology and where do all of our information come from and how do we know what we know. So, today, please open up your History of North America and Archaeology notes that are on Classroom, and let's get going. So we have some vocabulary words to learn today. You probably have heard of some of these things, but let's talk about them. So a historian is a person who studies written records of the past for information about what happened years and years ago. They're looking at books or letters or journals, but they're focusing on mostly written records. Down at the bottom, here is myself back in college, and here are three of my history professors when I graduated. So those three men all worked at the college I went to, and they were historians. They studied written records of the past, and they wrote books about history. And I took their classes and learned about history from them. So that's a historian who works in mostly a library reading old records and books and writing. An archaeologist is a little bit different. Probably the most famous archaeologist is Indiana Jones. Fictional character, not real, but he was someone who went and found artifacts that were buried in the ground or lost and used them to find clues about the past. So Indiana Jones, fake archaeologist. Here is what a real archaeologist would look like, right? Someone who digs in the ground, uncovers buried artifacts, which are human-made objects, and uses those to reconstruct an idea about the past. And we call this making an inference or inferring about what happened. So making an educated guess about what people may have done in the past. Here's an example. Let's say you're excavating the site of a village as an archaeologist, and you find a bunch of fish bones all in the same spot, lots and lots of bones. You could infer that this group of people ate lots of fish for food because you're finding lots of fish bones. And you could infer that what you're excavating is their trash pile because all the bones are in the same spot. So they would eat their fish, they would throw the bones in the same place, and you can make those educated guesses and try to reconstruct what their life was like. These artifacts and documents are called primary sources, and they're what we base our knowledge of the past on. So what your history books are written from are primary sources. Sometimes the story will change if we find new information, and we might have to change our understanding of the past. So in your notes, you have three examples of artifacts, and you are going to play archaeologist for a few minutes. So the first one you'll see it says example of artifacts, Ancestro Puebloans. Those are ancient people who lived in the southwest U.S. around us today. And here are some spear and dart points that they created and that we have found. What can you infer about their culture from these artifacts? Remember, inferences means make an educated guess. So pause the video, in your notes, type out one or two things you can infer about the Ancestro Puebloans from these different spear points. Okay, next one, ancient Greece. So ancient Greece is a culture that is across the ocean in Europe, and here is a vase from ancient Greece that has a painting on it. What could you infer or make an educated guess about the ancient Greeks from this image on the vase? What could you infer about their culture from this artifact? Again, pause the video, type out one or two things that you could infer or make an educated guess about the ancient Greeks from this vase. Last one, ancient China. So these are terracotta or like clay soldiers that were found in a tomb. All of these statues are life size. What could you infer about ancient China from all of these clay statues of soldiers that were found in a tomb of an emperor? Again, make an educated guess about the artifact and ancient China from these sources. Pause the video, make your guess. Okay, well, you can listen to our discussion in class today, or if you said that the ancestral Puebloans used spears to hunt animals, you would be correct, or also to fight in each other, that would be correct inference. If you said the ancient Greeks had many mythical creatures, like a woman who's got a bird, and that was part of their mythology, that would be one good guess, or also that they were a people who liked to sail ships, that would also be a good inference there. Or if you said that there were a lot of people in ancient China and they had enough resources to build a lot of fake guys, army soldiers, to protect their emperor, so you could infer about what ancient Chinese people looked like, how they dressed, or the fact that they had a huge population from this burial site. So how do we measure time? Time is measured by historians and archaeologists using a tool called a timeline. And we use the timeline to organize events in the past. We put the older events on the left or the top, and the newer events are put on the right or the bottom. Many of our modern ideas about time come from the ancient Romans, who spoke the language of Latin. In our English word decade means a 10-year period, and dec is a Latin word for 10. Our English word century, which means 100 years, comes from cent, which is 100 in Latin. Our English word millennium, which is 1,000 years, means mill, or comes from the Latin word mill. So, here are some examples of timelines. This is the timeline of the iPhones from when they were created in 2017 up through some of the more modern generations. And you can see how they changed over time, not only in style and apps and the layout, but also the size. And some of it remained the same, right? Like some of this bottom screen on most of them is very similar, but there is some change. And so you can see how things stay the same and both change over time. In this case, here's another timeline. This is a more standard one, left to right, with a timeline in the history of aviation, which were flying. And here is the Wright brothers, and they were the first people to have a plane, but you can see that before the Wright brothers, there were things like Zeppelins and hang gliders. And after, we have like the Apollo moon landing, and in 2010, we had the first hour-long flight powered only by solar panels. So it shows ideas changing over time. And last but not least, here's an example from Star Wars with all of the various episodes and shows put in order from oldest to newest. Okay, so in your notes, make sure to answer those questions about the vocabulary words. Please get those done. That is a part of your grade for today. So you are not done at this slide. You need to answer the questions in the notes as well. Let me know if you have questions. Good to see all of you again. Have a great rest of your day.